Okay, our story for today is Sleeping Beauty. In a peaceful kingdom, there reigned a good king and a good queen who together wanted a child. At last, a baby girl was born, and she was their joy. In this kingdom, every child was to be blessed by a fairy godmother, as fairies were the protectors of children. For a king's child, it seemed fitting to call forth every fairy in the land. Seven fairies responded to the call. The king arranged a tea for them, and each fairy was given a beautiful teapot of rose pearl and royal silver, set on feet of gold. It is a fact of life that no matter how hard he might try to give his child the perfect occasion, a father will always be at the mercy of the unexpected, even if that father is a king. And so it was that an eighth fairy, unexpected and uninvited, arrived to the tea. No one had known she even existed, for over time she had grown bitter and closed herself off from the world. The king did his best to make amends for overlooking this eighth fairy godmother. An emerald plate and cup were set for her. But because she had not been expected, the king had no footed teapot of rose pearl and royal silver to give. She received a brass teapot instead. This made the uninvited fairy godmother very angry, and she decided to take revenge. One of the other fairies saw the darkness cross her face and guessed what might happen next, so she hid herself behind a curtain. Each fairy then gave the king's child a blessing. One blessed the child with beauty, another with grace, and another with a sensible mind. One gave her poetry, one gave her song, and another gave her a gentle heart. Then the angry fairy stood over the child, and she said, "When this child grows into beauty in 15 years, she will prick her finger on the point of a spindle, and she will fall into a never-ending sleep. Love will not find her, and life will pass her by." On hearing such a curse, the queen nearly fainted away. But suddenly, from behind the curtain, stepped the last fairy godmother, with her blessing to give. This kind fairy said to the king and queen, "Do not despair, for even though the curse will come to pass, your daughter's sleep will not be without end. She will sleep for 100 years and then be awakened by love. There are times in life when one can do nothing but wait. This will be such a time." But the king, being a king, thought he could control his daughter's fate. So he ordered all the spinning wheels and spindles in the entire kingdom destroyed. For 14 years, this worked. But one day, in the 15th year of her life, the girl wandered into the woods. There she found a forgotten old cottage, and in it a forgotten old spinner. The wrinkled old spinner had never heard the king's order, and she possessed not only a spinning wheel, but also a long spindle, which was wrapped in thick wool. The girl reached out to touch the wool, pricked her finger, and fell into a deep sleep. She could not be awakened. The king and queen found their child and laid her atop a royal bed in the palace. They called for the fairy godmother who had given their daughter the 100 years' blessing, and they asked that they too be cast into the same long sleep, for they did not want to live without her. They wanted to awaken all together. Their wish was granted. The fairy then concealed the palace behind a thicket of briars and thorns. Only the tip of the tallest tower could be seen. 100 years passed as the palace slept. The world forgot them. But one day, at last, a young prince, traveling with his men, noticed the point of a tall tower rising out of a deep thicket of briars and thorns. Every instinct told him to go there. As the prince approached, the briars and thorns curled away, and the palace was revealed. He soon discovered the sleeping beauty lying on top of the royal bed, and he watched her with love in his eyes. He put her hand to his lips. She awoke. Everyone awoke. Life returned to the sleeping palace, where happiness had always been waiting. It just took time. The end.